Factories and industry were not brand new in the post-Civil War era. In fact, the factory system was introduced to the United States earlier in the 19th century and had existed before the war and had helped to service the needs of the Union Army during the course of the war. But the factories had focused primarily on textiles. That had been the real development pre-war. After the war, the factory system is going to be adapted to everything, to all manner of production, and expanded and concentrated under one roof in these urban areas where inexpensive labor was accessible, where cheap fuel sources were available. And the factory system is going to become the model for everything. Mass manufacturing, and then at the very end of it, we're going to see things even like the assembly line adapted to this to make sure that productivity is at its highest. The men who are responsible for making this happen, the captains of industry, as they would have referred to themselves, were men like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller. Not only did these men make vast fortunes by specializing in specific industries. Carnegie was steel, Rockefeller was oil. They streamlined the process, they cut costs. Their watchword was efficiency. It becomes a word for the era, for all elements of society. But these men are going to do things that had been done before. Steel wasn't brand new, but the way that Carnegie made it was new. It was cheaper, it was higher quality, and it was made in vast quantities. And that's going to make other industries grow. Carnegie is going to control the steel industry from the ground up, what's known as a vertical organizational system, where Carnegie is going to control every step of developing his steel. John D. Rockefeller is going to take over what's known as a horizontal development, where his empire is going to be to buy up as many of the oil industries as he possibly can, to get that all under one roof. And not only is he going to control, at one point, 90% of oil production in the United States, but he's going to then branch out and do the vertical and horizontal both by controlling the oil fields and the transportation facilities, even down to the marketing elements of it. So these men are going to so insinuate themselves into the process that they're making money and controlling all elements of it. This will lead us to what's known as the monopoly and the trust, and eventually fears that they're actually restraining trade by controlling it so much. But these are still the good guys. Robber barons also came along, men who were able to manipulate the system. Probably the most famous of these is a fellow by the name of Jay Gould. And Gould is going to move into industries. He's going to chop them up into little pieces. He's going to manipulate stock prices. He's going to make himself a very, very rich man, but also very, very unpopular. And Americans are going to point out that this is a way that this system can be abused and manipulated. And finally, there are men who neither make nor exploit directly, but rather finance. And the most famous of the financiers, the men who make themselves wealthy by being wealthy and investing in more wealth, are led by men like J.P. Morgan. And these become the men who define the growth of big industry in the United States in the late 19th century. All of this development makes the United States a major player in the global economy. The United States goes during this period, for instance, from being the number 3 maker of steel to being far and away number 1. By the end of the period, by 1900, not only is the United States the number 1 manufacturer of steel, it's making more than the next 2 combined. Industry and industrial development in the United States becomes a key factor of everything else. The economy, culture, society, and politics. All of it driven by extreme wealth and extreme success in industrial growth.